When we talk about sickle cell, sometimes we think we know sickle cell, sometimes we don't. The month of June is a very special month for people living with sickle cell. We call them warriors. And apparently today, I got a new name. They call themselves the shining stars. Why? Because they've been shining all along. And they have defied a lot of odds to be who they are. So that name truly befits them. On the 19th of June, I call it Juneteenth, is a day when we create awareness on sickle cell. So it becomes World Sickle Cell Day. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm joined by three amazing ladies. I have Naomi, I have Leah, and I have Knote. Knote is such a beautiful name. And they're going to introduce themselves and they tell you who they are and how they are related or how they have encountered sickle cell in their daily lives. Welcome to the show. My name is Ademba Pondo and this is Birthmark, a show that talks about birth injury, birth trauma, and genetics. Welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, I'll start with you. So tell us your name, what you do, and how you've encountered sickle cell in your daily life.
Okay, thank you. My name is Naomi Aworoma, a sickle cell warrior and also an advocate in Kisumu County. I do advocacy for sickle cell and also create awareness for caregivers and also warriors who have this stigma for sickle cell and they are afraid of coming out to say what they undergo. So that's all about Naomi and the sickle cell world.
Thank you so much, Naomi, and you look amazing.
Thank you.
Okay, my name is Leah Martha. Leah Martha is a clinician working with the county government of Kisumu and a sickle cell advocate. We advocate for sickle cell. We walk caregivers through this disease that has been neglected. We call it a neglected non-communicable tropical disease. We have it, we do not know about it, and what we know about it is like 30% of what we should. And today we are here to talk about it, and thank you for welcoming us to the show.
You're welcome.
Okay, my name is Monica Knote. I'm a therapist, a counselor, and today I'm here to give hope to caregivers who have lost hope, those who are in denial, those who have stigma, those who think that maybe their hope has gone. So I'm here just to share, to give hope again because of what I've gone through concerning sickle cell disease.
Thank you so much. I'll start with you there because you are a clinician. What I really want you to do for us today is to just explain to us what exactly is sickle cell. Just take us through that. I mean, we need to understand what it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So sickle cell. Sickle cell, I'll start with the myths. Everyone imagines that sickle cell is a gene. Gene to mean the witchcraft that we get in Mombasa. It's a gene, yes, but not a gene written as Gene. It's a gene disorder. So we start by, it's a blood disorder. What does our blood entail? Our blood entails the white blood cells that helps us it protects us from infection. It contains the red blood cells. The red blood cells basically help, it's a protein that helps carry oxygen, nutrients to the body from the heart. Then from the body, it carries the deoxygenated blood, it carries every other thing back to the heart for purification. Then in the blood, we also have the platelets. Then we have the plasma. The plasma is the driver. This is the fluid that carries everything, the red blood cells, the white blood cells, and the platelets. So going to the sickle cell disease is an inherited autosomal recessive. Broken down, it means this is a trait or a condition that is passed down from the parent to the child. So I want us to get that very clearly from the word go, so that we are able to know that we cannot say that, imagine someone looked at my child and infected my child with sickle cell. Like in Luo tradition, we usually imagine that there are diseases someone can throw at you, for lack of a better word. Sickle cell is not among those diseases. Then it's a structural hemoglobinopathy. Hemoglobinopathy, it means the hemoglobin is abnormal. There is a problem with the hemoglobin. Then basically what happens in the DNA, we have something that we have the DNA, if we remember our biology a bit, where we had the G and the C. Then the second strand, we have the A and the T. So when we talk of a genetic disorder, it means that the T has come in place where we have the A, and the A has come in place where we have the T. There's just that switch. And this switch came about when the body was trying to develop a defense mechanism from malaria. And in the process, because the malaria loves the red blood cell, the body decided, let's change the shape of this red blood cell so that when malaria comes, it doesn't kill us. So in the process of changing the shape of the red blood cell, it made the shape of the red blood cell be crescent in shape. After that, now we have both the crescent shape and we have the normal red blood cell shape. So basically, sickle cell came about as a body's defense towards malaria, and now it brought in a new condition.
Wow, that's quite intensive. Thank you very much. Now, I want to ask briefly. I'd like to ask Naomi. Naomi, when did you find out that you had sickle cell? Were you old enough? Did you grow up being told that you have sickle cell, or how did it happen? Or what kind of symptoms actually now probably prompted your parents to take you for screening? Just give us a history on how you got to learn that you had sickle cell.
Okay, I'll start with where I was diagnosed. I was diagnosed with sickle cell at 2 years. And according to the story that my parents usually say, I was that healthy person. And by that time, I was like, I wasn't brown, I was like white, pepper white. So they decided to take me to the hospital because I didn't have any crisis at all. But the color of the skin was a little bit awkward. So they decided to take me to the hospital, and I was diagnosed at that 2 years with sickle cell. And I came to realize that I have sickle cell when I was in class 4. The reason why I came to realize that class 4 was my mom decided to go back to school. So she was like, I can't leave Naomi with a house help or a relative. And I can't go with her also to my college. So she took me to a boarding school. That was Loak. So when I felt sick, was like, this child has sickle cell. We have to rush her to the hospital. So when matron was usually saying, Naomi, you should take your drugs. Like every morning I could go to the dispensary and take drugs. So one day I asked my principal, because I was that talkative person, like, why do I usually take these drugs? And when they're over, you call my mom, like, you have sickle cell. And that's where I found out that I had sickle cell in class 4.
So this information ideally came from your head teacher?
Yeah.
Not directly from your mother.
Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't directly from my mother.
Okay. So how can you remember how you felt at that point? Or it was just any other thing? So you okay? You don't even know what
For me, I think it was normal because they didn't even discriminate me. I was just like a normal kid. So I didn't feel that impact until I was in grade 8 when I fell sick. And now I was transferred to another school, a day school. Then a teacher, I didn't come to school that day. Then the following day when I came, I didn't have the doctor's report. So my class teacher was like, you should bring your doctor's report so that you should know that you are sick or blah blah blah. So I was like, I don't have doctor's report because some hospitals they were not giving the doctor's report. So then she said like she has to punish me because I missed school. And another teacher was like, no, usimchape, huyu anakuanga sickle. So at that point I was like, okay, this sickle cell thing is very strange to everyone. Why should this teacher say huyu anakuanga sickle? So I came home, like I was asking my mom, like, is it am I that different from other people? That if I did something wrong, I'm not supposed to be punished. Like my mom was like, who told you that? I said that teacher said that we anakuanga sickle, so wasimchape. So at that point, I became I can say I was just alone in my space with the other kids were like, Naomi, can we play? No, I was in my own space until I finished class 8. Then when I joined Form 1, it was just normal because I think I had support from my parents, because every school that I was going, she could tell the teachers like, I'm admitting her and I can't do a day school because she doesn't like day school, because I was not that day school person. So she could tell every principal or head teacher. So my secondary education was just the best.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
Thank you. And now to Lady Knote. I'd really like to know about you as a caregiver. Just briefly, how, just give me a story about you and your kids, your children, how you found out and how that felt for you at that moment. Just briefly. How did you find out? Were your kids sick at some point? Was screening done at birth? I really don't want to prepare, but I just want it to come from you.
Okay, thank you. Since I had 2 children suffering from sickle cell anemia, at birth they were just okay until 8 months. Then I recognized something funny. The color was now changing, and there was another thing like as if the firstborn, that is frenzy, Shere, was like having difficulty in breathing.
This is at 8 months.
At 8 months. Okay. Then I visited several hospitals, but doctors were like asking me, do you have background of TB? Do you have background of arthritis? So I was like, I don't see TB in my lineage or arthritis. So at 2 years, Frenzy was diagnosed with arthritis. They tried even to incubate the blood, such things. So what came out is arthritis. So the girl was put on drugs, arthritis drugs, for 1 year. Kumbe, it was not arthritis. So the limbs continued swelling, things were strange, the health was deteriorating, there was much pain, she was screaming when the pain is there. So what came next, with my first daughter, she was diagnosed very late, at 6 years. And the second girl, that is Serenity, still the same traits. They were just like showing the same symptoms and traits. So with Serenity, again late years, 2 years. But with the Serenity, I was like, no, it is now not true. These people are putting for me every heavy thing in my head. Am I the person giving birth to this sickles? I was like that.
Yeah.
Until I went to 3 hospitals, different hospitals, just to confirm. And you see, that was denial. But at 2 years for Serenity, I found out that she was also a sickler, while my first daughter, Frenzy, 6 years.
Wow. Apart from, so what was the color changing like? What was the color? What was the, you said the color changed?
The color was, they were like, white pepper, like they were, the brownish was like as if they are not, typical Luos. They are always dark in color, but this one was so much brown until people nicknames in Ishere at Moria or Ria like. So she was growing thin, but this color persisted. So we were like, what is wrong with the child? The lips are just been swelling, everything, but this color keeps on changing. So it was abnormal color anyway.
Okay. So Martha, to you, we've seen Naomi's case, where she's 4 years old, she's in school, and then she's wondering, why am I taking all this medication? Now this comes to my next question. How do caregivers break the news to their children, and what is the right age? I'm asking this because you're a clinician and you possibly see a number of people with children, and now that brings transitioning from that young age, because at age 4, we assume age 4, they kind of start to be aware of what the environment is like or what is really changing within themselves. So what age would you suggest or advise caregivers who have children, diagnosed with ACD, to start talking to their kids about the kind of medication they need to take? That is question 1. And then question 2, I'd like you to talk about the color change. What brings about the color change? I'm saying this because possibly there's somebody who is watching right now and maybe has a kid who is constantly sick, and maybe they're getting brown, and we assume, oh my God, you know why? Because we stay indoors, and our assumption is when you live in Kisumu or where there's a lot of sun, the sun has to hit you properly hard, and your color kind of is dark. So I want you to talk about those 2 things. What can we tell caregivers? What's the right age for caregivers to tell their kids about medication and the kind of thing they're taking? Is it okay for us to tell them, for example, at that age, or do you have to wait a little longer? Is it better if it comes from the parents? I'm saying this because I know as caregivers, it's not very easy to talk about these things to your own child. So please help us with that.
Okay. Thank you. So when do we disclose to our children their sickle cell status? As soon as you can have a conversation with your child, you need to bring on board that there's this thing that is here. It's called sickle cell disease. It's not your fault. It's not our fault. It's something that we cannot avoid. It's in the gene. So when the kid grows up, but the best age is 7 years moving forward, because we very soon will go into adolescence. And adolescent is a time of exploring. We want to explore everything, and there are things that our warriors should not do, like smoking, like taking alcohol, because it takes me to my red blood cell and the sickle red blood cell presentation. When we understand that the red blood cell has a lifespan of 120 days, the sickle red blood cell, the lifespan is 10 to 20 days. What is that supposed to tell you? Our oxygen supply cannot be as good as persons without sickle cell disease. Then our color, this is what brings about the color change. Because when we break down the red blood cell, we get a condition called jaundice. Jaundice is the yellowness of the eyes, the skin. So which is a very common presentation for people living with sickle cell anemia, they turn yellow. It's not brown, it's yellowness. It's something close to brown, but it's not brown because of the constant breakdown of the red blood cells. Then our sickle red blood cells are rigid and very sticky. So they end up sticking onto our blood vessels, and this is what, once we get down to the signs and symptoms, we'll be able to discuss. The kafani pain, your child was just playing, then all of a sudden there's this very excruciating pain, and everyone usually tends to think that warriors are pretenders because they don't understand what happens when these sickle red blood cells clog in the system. So basically the yellowness comes about because of the constant breakdown of the red blood cells after 10 to 20 days. And the best age to tell our warriors of what they're suffering from is 7 years, when they're going into early adolescence, so that they're able to make informed decisions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So there's a process which has actually also reminded me. When you talk about the lifespan of red blood cells, for example, they take between for people diagnosed with ACD, it takes between 9 to 10 days, is it?
10 to 20
days. 10 to 20 days.
Yeah.
Now, there's usually a presentation when you go to hospital, for example, most of the time they don't test positive for malaria. And earlier on, when we were discussing about sickle cell and how it came about, it was nature trying to protect us, or rather the body was trying to adapt to malaria by changing the shape of the red blood cells. So is there a reason why sometimes it's not easy for these people is there a clinical or a medical explanation why it's not easy, for example, to test positive for malaria? Does the lifespan of the red blood cells has something to do with it? You think it has a relationship?
For the sickle cell trait,
Yeah.
persons with the sickle cell trait have both the normal red blood cell and the sickle red blood cell. So they are advantaged because they rarely suffer from malaria, anybody with the trait. Because the sickle red blood cell will take 20 days, its lifespan, and the normal red blood cell has 120 days. So the normal red blood cell will remain standing as the sickle red blood cell lifespan goes down 5 times. That is why persons with the sickle cell trait who have both the normal and the abnormal red blood cell, number 1, don't even show any signs and symptoms of sickle cell disease. Then number 2, they don't get malaria. They rarely get malaria. That is just nature's way that is now what nature wanted to do. It wanted to protect people not to suffer from malaria. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. I think that's very clear. We have a clear explanation why. So my argument has always been, when I meet people, I tell them, do you get malaria? No. I said, okay, you need to go for screening. Not that it's a bad thing, but it's just for awareness sake. So that when you get somebody else who does not suffer from malaria, unajiambia mimi nakupenda lakini hapa hatuwezi ingiana. Yeah, so what I really wanted to find out from before I go to Knote again, from Naomi. Naomi, I'd like you to explain to me. It's not very easy. I know when somebody asks you, how much pain do you feel? You know the way they ask mothers, how is labor pain? You know, you can't explain. You know it's a painful thing, but you can't just, tell somebody, you know what, even giving it a scale from 1 to 10, you say it's a 9 or 9.5. Even that is actually almost impossible. But we know that it's very painful because we've seen them. We've seen them crying. We've seen them feel so helpless. I just want to find out from Naomi, how has sickle cell crisis, how has crisis affected you? I mean, when, let's say, you've been going to work, how has it happened? Have you failed to do your assignments? Have you failed to do? Just tell me what this thing has really just done to you. I'm just going to let you speak and tell me how sickle cell has done to you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Makrin. Sickle cell crisis, I can't even rate it. If you are told to rate it at the ratio of 1 to 10, it's above 10, because the pain that you feel today is not the pain that you will feel tomorrow. It's above 10. That's all I can tell you. It's as if someone is hitting you with a hammer at the joint. So it's painful. If a warrior has a crisis, it starts slowly. Maybe he or she will tell you, I'm feeling pain. Maybe at the leg or at the hand. After 5 minutes, it escalates to every part of the body. Most cases is legs, back pain.
Like normal back pain, or
It's I haven't experienced normal back pain, but
yeah. I don't know what that is. I'm sorry.
It's that pain you can't even stand. Yeah. So I can't rate it at a ratio of 1 to 10.
Okay.
It's above.
Okay.
That's what I can say. Because I've had experience with some warriors who have given birth, and they say labor pain is not pain. It's a slight crisis.
You're kidding me.
Yeah. So we can't rate that. It's painful.
Wow, I have goosebumps.
And crisis has affected me in so many ways. Let's say, like, you have an assignment. I used to work with a certain NGO. So you have an assignment, you have to reach your target. But the moment, even in the morning, you just woken up, you're dressed, stepping at the door, you have a crisis. Or reaching at your workplace, you go into crisis. Someone may think you are just pretending, but it's real. And then the funny thing with crisis, it comes when you don't expect it. The least expected times. More frequently it comes during the night at around 12. It starts around 11, 12, 3. So it has really affected me. Even in a relationship, maybe you can't even disclose to your partner that you're a sickler, because you don't know the reaction. What next? What next if I say that I'm a sickler? He will look at me like, seriously? And most warriors, they don't have jobs. Being they go into crisis like frequently. I know no employee will need a lazy person, a sickling person, that is. They always say, you can't work here because you're sickling.
They say that?
Yeah. Because she needs money or he needs money. And for you, you're there, you're sick today, you're going even for 1 week off or 3 days. But what I know with warriors is like, we are bright, we are extraordinary people, unique people. Because if you say, no, Naomi, I want you to do this, and today I get sick, the next minute I'll get better, I'll do that thing perfectly.
A quick one. I know you've mentioned that you having sickle cell has kind of made you feel, there's a bit of stigma, and it kind of limits you from achieving your target sometimes because of what people think, and people don't really understand what sickle cell. That's why I keep on saying people really don't understand. Leah, I don't know what we're going to do to make people understand sickle cell, because when Naomi was speaking earlier, Naomi talked about a teacher saying, "Usimchape, huyu anakuanga sickler." Is it that sometimes we're very careless with our words, or I'm talking to you because you're a professional, and possibly we utter certain words that can cause a warrior to walk into crisis without us really knowing, because we are not aware. And I know your field work. I'm asking you all this because I know you handle them from whatever age to whatever age. Do you think that sometimes you're too careless? What do we need to do so that we make life more bearable for these people?
Okay. So charity begins at home. How we treat our warriors at home will help them know how to be treated when they're out there. So when in the house, we have to ensure that maybe they have the same meal. We can go healthy, the whole house can go healthy without her being segregated, like, no, you can't take soda, you will go into a crisis. Let the whole house have milk. Let the whole house speak so positively about sickle cell to an extent the esteem of this warrior is raised. This warrior can comfortably come out like Naomi and talk about her condition without feeling like, oh, now I have just thrown myself into the waters. So we need to first have advocacy from home. When our parents live in peace, I love the setup that our parents then had. These people would fight, your mother would come out of the room with a red eye, but would still serve your father so nicely. Oh, but Generation Z, the whole world will know. The status will say, I am there even when you're here or not. Now, when we bring this tension to the house, the warriors tend to withdraw. They tend to tell themselves, I think I'm the reason why my dad and my mom cannot be in peace. So when this warrior already is having stigma from home, when he goes to school, when a teacher will carelessly throw something at her, she'll be like, yeah, I know. Then there's this notion that our warriors, I love the way every other person has a death date for warriors. If they don't die at this, they will die at this. And if they don't die at this, they will die at this. Now, you live with fear. You live with the fear of, okay, what if I make it to 40? Naomi here is above 30. How many warriors are told that they will not make it to 30? Naomi is above 30. Now you're left wondering, okay, now what do I do with my 31st year moving forward? So one thing we need to cut off from, there's one myth we really need to disengage and delink ourselves from, is the death day for warriors. This is what breaks them. Because even in school you're told, sicheze sana, atakuwa mgonjwa. Sicklers should play. But now when you tell them that yes, you can play, but you play with a limit. Know when you're tired. Don't overdo the playing. Because exertion, when you're physically exhausted, you will go into a crisis. So this brings me down to, what is your trigger? The number one trigger is nothing. Like Naomi has said, you will wake up in the morning, you're dressed up, you're so full of life, then you go into a crisis. Nothing will have triggered your crisis. Number two trigger is stress. Why would you anticipate, like, unajua jioni nitakuchapa? That kid just before jioni comes will go into crisis. If you have to beat your child, you don't beat your child so ruthlessly. You beat in a disciplined manner. Then number three is dehydration. When our children do not drink enough water. The sickle red blood cells are very sticky, so they need water. Like when you get a place where there's sugar, you wash it out with water. That is what happens to our blood vessels. So when they take enough water, the sickle red blood cells don't stick onto the blood vessels. They don't go into crisis. Then number fourth trigger is high altitude. Our red blood cell was supposed to help us carry oxygen. So when the higher you go, the cooler it becomes, the lower the oxygen concentration, we'll throw your warrior into crisis. So our warriors will not go for mountain climbing. So meaning that household, you don't involve into activities that will make you go into high altitude. Number 4 is exciting news. How do you bring exciting news to the family? You need to be very cautious. Warriors cannot handle extreme adrenaline. Very sad news and very happy news. You have to have a way in which information is given to our warriors. Then number 5, another trigger that we oftenly see is we have infection. How does infection present? Your child has fever. Warriors are not children. You'll say, wacha nijaribu na paracetamol kidogo nione. When your child has fever, that's already a red flag. There is infection that is going on that has to be investigated. So we have to know our triggers. Once we know our triggers, we will be safe. We'll be able to rule out what could have caused our crisis. And with that, we will be good.